Hello, Anne-Marie Foster here. Next up on Little Bangor Stories, the history of amateur soccer in Bangor. In this little teaser, my two pundits, Peter Finucci and Alan Dempster, give a fascinating insight into just how intrepid and adaptable Bangor Swifts and Bransburn Rangers were in their early days. To begin, Peter recalls where the Swifts had their team bases right at the start.
Once it became, a football club, as usual, the only place people could base themselves were in bars. I think our first AGM was in the Castle Arms, which is now Teddy's, yeah. And then at various times they drank in Fealties. They drank in the Jamaica Inn. I think one stage might have been at the Helmsman. And I know they finished off in the Imperial. And I think they've been in the Imperial quite a long time. And certainly George McCann, because they went through some sticky patches, but he certainly helped them out.
So you had the Bransburn Inn.
And I would like to say that Bransburn never moved about. We were in the Bransburn Inn from 74 until we got our own ground in 95. We weren't nomads like the Swifts, going around different bars depending on what was on offer.
So you had your bases then whenever the two teams started out, and you mentioned your friendlies were played at Connor Park, but where would the, for want of a better word, the proper matches have been played around Bangor?
Yes, when it settled down, I mean, our home pitch was at Bloomfield. Now, obviously, those pitches are still there, although there's only two. Back then, there was 4 pitches, and we shared our pitch, which was the biggest one, and I would have argued the better one down there. I mean, there were council pitches, but they were allocated to you, and we shared with Bangor Rangers first. And at that stage, our seconds played at the Valentines and shared with Bangor Rangers seconds. Now, our seconds did move about a bit. For a while, we were based where Bangor Amateurs currently are, in the pitch beside Bangor FC on the Clannyboy Road. So we did move about, and we also played up at Ballywoolly. I mean, there was always association there with Ballywoolly. It was used by the BB and also by Bransburn.
And what about the Swifts? Were you allocated pitches as well by the council? Or?
The Swifts, you talk about pitches, and we have mentioned some pitches which existed back in the day and which don't exist now. We've mentioned Connor Park. Connor Park was originally used a lot for primary schools because the posts were actually smaller than standard size goal posts, and it was never marked. It was never a proper pitch. Alan's mentioned the Abbey pitch. It was situated there beside the Marcus Hall behind the Abbey Church, and I know the primary schools used it, and at the start I think the Swifts used it quite a bit, and I remember Bangor Abbey went on to make it their home pitch, and now it's just covered in the planted trees and bushes in it.
But it would have had a bit of the same problem as Connor Park. I mean, if you had kicked a ball the wrong way, you're way down chasing it.
Many a time the ball ended up on Abbey Street, and it was no joke, especially when you got another team who were a bit belligerent to do it deliberately.
It was terrible. I need to tell you about Ballywoolly, even though that's our own ground now, but it was a lot different back then.
That's out to Crawfordsburn Road.
Yes. On the way to Crawfordsburn, just after St Gall's Church. But it always had 2 pitches, and one was right adjacent, to the hedge on the main road. But first of all, it was on a big slope, but then it also sloped left or right. So if you were like playing up the hill and you had a corner in the far right, you actually couldn't see who was in the box when you were taking the corner. You were trying to swing, just hoping that somebody was there because it came down so far. The accommodation, it was basically 2 porta cabins. There was no electrics, there was no sewage, there was nothing. And there was holes in the roof. I mean, I suppose you could argue you got a shower that way if it was raining. So what happened was, you played your match, and obviously if we were playing in the winter, the match was finished and it was nearly pitch black. Then you were coming in, but no lights and no water to wash. And you were groping about. Of course, you had no mobile phones with a flashlight. You're groping about to try and find your clothes. You're dirty. And you couldn't find exactly what you needed, to get dressed. It was a crazy set of affairs.
More very soon on Little Bangor Stories.